Welcome to our deep dive into Lubbock, Texas. We're going to try to uncover some of the history of this unique city. I'm really excited about this one. We've got a couple of sources we're going to be using. First, we've got this History Buff's Guide to Lubbock.
This looks like a great guide to the attractions.
It does, and it's from Visit Lubbock. And we're also going to be looking at the Lubbock Wikipedia article.
Okay, so kind of more like a broad overview.
Exactly. So one will give us the broad overview, and one will give us like the attractions and some more specific things. So if you're interested in Lubbock's history, this is the place to be.
So, when people think of Texas, certain images come to mind: cowboys, ranches, oil fields. But Lubbock kind of challenges those stereotypes, doesn't it?
It does. So I'm ready to be challenged.
All right, well, let's start with the basics. Lubbock's known as the hub city. You know why?
I don't. Tell me.
Well, it's the economic and cultural center of the South Plains, a massive region covering multiple counties.
So it's more than just like a little town.
Oh, way more. It's a central hub for agriculture, healthcare, education, you name it. Lubbock's got it. It's actually smack dab in the middle of the world's largest contiguous cotton-growing region.
Okay, that is impressive. But I gotta ask, with all that cotton, how sustainable is it really?
That's the million-dollar question. It all hinges on the Ogallala Aquifer, a massive underground water source. Problem is, it's being depleted faster than it can replenish. Creates a real dilemma, a tension between Lubbock's agricultural success and, long-term water sustainability.
Yeah, that's a challenge a lot of regions are facing these days. Makes you think about what innovations are being developed to address it. But before we jump too far ahead, let's take a step back. What was the area like before European settlers?
Oh, it was a completely different world then. The area was part of Comanche, the domain of the Comanche people, a vast landscape roamed by nomadic tribes.
Wow, so before the Cowboys and the cotton fields, it was the Comanches. That adds a whole other layer to the story. When did the name Lubbock actually show up on the map?
Well, Lubbock County was established in 1876, named after Thomas Saltus Lubbock,
Who was?
a Texas Ranger who played a role in the Texas Revolution. Even back then, they were planting those seeds of Texas pride.
I love it. So how about the city itself? When did it actually take shape?
That happened in 1890 through a merger.
Oh, a merger.
Yeah, they combined two settlements, Old Lubbock and Monterey. And get this, they literally moved the Nicollet Hotel across a canyon on rollers.
What? No way.
Yeah, talk about dedication to their new community.
That's incredible. So, what happened next?
Well, in 1909, Lubbock officially became a city, and the first train arrived connecting it to the rest of the world. It really ushered in this period of massive growth. But the real game changer, 1923. That's when Texas Technological College was founded, which we now know as Texas Tech University.
Yes. Texas Tech. Seems like it's almost synonymous with Lubbock these days.
Absolutely. Its arrival transformed Lubbock from a frontier town into a bustling college town with education at its core, and that shift toward education just continued. In 1969, the Texas Tech University School of Medicine opened, solidifying Lubbock's role as a healthcare hub for the whole region.
So in about a century, it went from Comanche to a hub of education and healthcare. Pretty amazing transformation. But I'm guessing the story doesn't end there, especially in a state where college sports are king.
You're right. We can't talk about Lubbock without talking Texas Tech athletics. Remember, we're in Texas. Football and basketball are practically religions.
And Texas Tech holds its own, right?
Oh, absolutely. They've got 17 teams across 11 sports, all competing in the Big 12 Conference. Texas Tech athletics is a huge source of pride for the whole community.
I bet those games are electric. Are there any standout moments in their history?
Oh, definitely. For example, did you know their polo team won a national championship in 2006?
Polo. That's not exactly your typical Texas sport, but it shows the breadth of their athletic talent. What about football and basketball?
Well, they've had some incredible runs. Football has multiple conference titles and bowl game victories. And men's basketball, well, the legendary coach Bob Knight led the team from 2001 to 2008.
And let's not forget the Lady Raiders basketball team. Practically royalty in women's basketball.
Absolutely. They made history in 1993, winning the NCAA Women's Basketball Championship, led by the phenomenal Cheryl Swoops. That victory cemented their legacy.
That's definitely a story worth celebrating, but I have a feeling there's more to Lubbock than just Texas Tech.
Yeah, oh, there's so much more. Remember that History Buff's guide? It's full of fascinating attractions that showcase the city's diverse culture.
Okay, let's dive into those attractions. What stands out to you?
Well, since we were just talking about Texas Tech's economic impact, I think it's interesting to note that Lubbock plays a surprising role in the Texas High Plains wine industry.
Really? I had no idea.
Yeah, this region produces a whopping 80% of the state's wine grapes.
80%. That's incredible. Never would have guessed Lubbock was a wine destination.
It's a hidden gem, for sure. There are actually 5 wineries located near Lubbock, offering tastings, tours, a chance to experience Texas wines, a great way to connect with the region's agricultural heritage.
That's going straight on my Lubbock to-do list. And speaking of unique experiences, what about those museums? The National Ranching Heritage Center sounds particularly interesting.
The Ranching Heritage Center is amazing. Imagine walking through authentic ranch buildings from different eras, each one with a story to tell about the pioneers.
Sounds like a journey back in time.
It is, and it's not just buildings. They have wagons, tools, firearms, all these artifacts that give you a glimpse into the lives of those early ranchers.
Wow, that must really bring the history to life. But what about for those looking for something a little more modern? Does Lubbock have anything to offer?
Of course, Lubbock has a surprisingly vibrant arts and entertainment scene, especially in the Depot District.
Depot District. Tell me more.
Picture this. A revitalized historic area centered around the old Fort Worth and Denver South Plains Railway Depot. Today, it's a hub for creativity, with theaters, art galleries, even upscale restaurants and nightlife.
So it's like a mix of history and modern energy.
Exactly. And right there in the Depot District, you'll find the iconic Buddy Holly Center, a tribute to Lubbock's most famous son.
It's amazing how the city's history, its music, and its modern culture are all intertwined. Lubbock truly is a city with many layers to uncover.
It is. And as we continue our deep dive, keep that sense of interconnectedness in mind. Lubbock's story is woven from so many threads. Native American heritage, agricultural roots, that ambition for education, musical talent. It's fascinating.
It's a city that defies simple labels, which makes it even more intriguing to explore.
So last time we left off with a question for you. We asked you to think about which aspect of Lubbock's history had kind of captured your imagination.
Yeah, was it the Native American roots, or maybe the ranching heritage, or maybe even the mystery of the Lubbock Lights? We've got so much to explore.
We do. But for now, I think it's time to really dive into Texas Tech University.
Yeah, it's a huge part of Lubbock's story, that's for sure.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, to understand Lubbock today, you almost have to understand Texas Tech. It's not just about academics. It's woven into the city's economy, its culture, its whole social fabric.
Okay, so paint me a picture. What kind of impact are we talking about here?
Well, let's start with enrollment. Texas Tech boasts the 7th largest student population in the entire state of Texas.
7th. Wow, that's massive.
It is, and they're not stopping there. Back in 2010, they set a goal to hit 40,000 students by 2020. Talk about ambition.
So it's a university with a grand vision, but it's not just about size, right? What about the students themselves?
Well, that's another remarkable thing about Texas Tech. It attracts students from all 50 states, and get this, over 100 countries. A true melting pot of cultures and ideas.
It really reflects the incredible diversity of America.
It does. And here's where it gets really interesting from an economic standpoint. Those students, faculty, and staff, they contribute a whopping $1.5 billion annually to the local economy.
$1.5 billion. Seriously, how do they even calculate that?
Think about it. Student spending alone makes up almost $300 million of that impact. Housing, food, entertainment, you name it. Texas Tech students are a driving force in Lubbock's economy.
I'm starting to see the bigger picture. Texas Tech isn't just a university. It's like this engine driving Lubbock forward.
Exactly. It's a true symbiotic relationship. The university benefits from the city, and the city benefits from the university. Education, innovation, all that economic activity.
Okay, I'm sold on Texas Tech. But I'm also wondering about, the other side of the coin. What about the things that make Lubbock special outside of the university?
That's a great point. It brings us back to that History Buffs guide. All those interesting attractions we talked about, they really give you a feel for the heart and soul of Lubbock, beyond just the academic world.
So let's revisit those attractions then. What stands out to you as truly unique to Lubbock?
Well, since we were just discussing Texas Tech's economic influence, it's interesting to consider Lubbock's surprising role in the Texas High Plains wine industry. Did you know that this region is responsible for 80% of the state's wine grapes?
Wait, 80%? Seriously? I had no idea.
Yeah, it's a hidden gem that a lot of people don't know about. There are 5 wineries right there near Lubbock, offering tastings, tours, a whole experience of Texas wines. It's a great way to connect with that agricultural heritage we've been talking about.
That's definitely going on the list. And speaking of unique experiences, what about those museums? That National Ranching Heritage Center sounds really cool.
Oh, it is. Imagine walking through authentic ranch buildings from different eras. Each one tells a story about the pioneers who shaped that land.
It's like stepping back in time.
Exactly. And they've got more than just buildings. Wagons, tools, firearms, all these artifacts that give you a real sense of the daily life of those early ranchers.
I can just picture it. But what about people who are looking for something a little more modern? Does Lubbock have anything for them?
Oh, absolutely. Lubbock actually has a pretty vibrant arts and entertainment scene, especially down in the Depot District.
Depot District. Okay, tell me more.
Imagine a revitalized historic area right around the old Fort Worth and Denver South Plains Railway Depot. Today, it's this hub for creative energy with theaters, art galleries, even upscale restaurants and nightlife.
So it's a blend of history and modern flair.
Exactly. And right there in the Depot District, you'll find the iconic Buddy Holly Center.
Oh, right. We mentioned him earlier.
Yep, a must-visit for any music lover.
It's amazing how it's all connected. Lubbock's history, its music, its modern culture. It's quite a tapestry.
It really is. And as we continue exploring, keep that interconnectedness in mind. Lubbock's story has so many threads, from Native American heritage to agricultural roots, educational ambitions, musical talent, even some unexplained phenomena. We'll get into that later with the Lubbock Lights.
It's a city that defies simple categorization, and that's what makes it so fascinating. And we're back for the final part of our Lubbock deep dive. We've gone from the city's early days to its vibrant culture and everything in between. But I'm curious about some of the more recent happenings, events that have shaped the political and social landscape of Lubbock today.
It's fascinating how Lubbock, just like any city, is constantly evolving. Its history isn't just some static thing, it's an ongoing narrative.
Definitely. So what kind of recent developments have been making an impact?
Well, let's start with a topic that always seems to spark debate. Alcohol sales. Remember, we're in Texas, where alcohol laws have a pretty interesting history.
That's an understatement. So what was the situation in Lubbock specifically?
For a long time, Lubbock County allowed package sales, like liquor stores, but not sales of alcoholic drinks in restaurants unless they were private clubs.
Okay.
But inside the city limits, it was the reverse. Restaurants could serve alcohol, but no liquor stores were allowed.
Oh, wow. So it was kind of this confusing patchwork of regulations. What changed that?
Well, in 2008, the Lubbock Chamber of Commerce stepped in. They started a petition drive to put the whole issue of alcohol sales to a vote. The goal, to allow both package and by-the-drink sales countywide.
So they wanted to simplify things. Did it work?
It did. In 2009, both propositions passed, and with a pretty clear majority. It was a big shift for the area, I think, reflecting changing attitudes toward alcohol and recognizing the economic impact.
I can imagine that stirred up a lot of conversation in the community.
Oh, for sure. Some people welcomed the changes, saw it as an opportunity for businesses, a boost to the local economy. But of course, there were others who had concerns about the potential downsides.
Yeah, it's a classic dilemma. Progress often comes with differing opinions, and it's all about finding that balance. What are some other examples of Lubbock wrestling with those kinds of complex issues?
Well, one that's been particularly hot in recent years, both nationally and locally, is abortion.
Definitely a sensitive topic and one that deserves careful consideration from all sides. What has been the focal point of the discussion in Lubbock?
Back in 2020, news broke that Planned Parenthood was planning to open a clinic in Lubbock.
Oh, wow.
And this immediately sparked pushback from certain state lawmakers, those who were staunchly opposed to abortion.
So it kind of became a microcosm of the larger national debate.
Exactly. But playing out in a very localized way. One state senator even launched a petition to try to block Planned Parenthood from setting up shop in Lubbock. It was framed as a moral issue. There was a big push to declare Lubbock a sanctuary city for the unborn.
Sanctuary city. That's a term we usually hear in a different context. What does it mean in this case?
It shows how intense the debate was, this desire to use local ordinances to codify a specific moral stance. In essence, it aimed to outlaw abortion within the city limits.
So what happened with the ordinance? Did it pass?
The city council actually rejected it initially, but it ended up going to a public vote in 2021, and the voters of Lubbock approved the ordinance.
So Lubbock became the largest city in the U.S. to adopt this kind of measure.
It did.
Wow, that's a major decision. No matter your personal stance, it shows how local politics can become this reflection of national debates with real consequences for the community. What happened next?
Well, Planned Parenthood challenged the ordinance in court, but their efforts ultimately failed. The ordinance is still in effect today.
It's a reminder that even in a city with such a rich history and such a vibrant culture, there are these ongoing challenges, these difficult conversations that need to happen.
That's exactly why it's so important to look back to examine history. It helps us grasp the complexities of the present and to be able to participate in those conversations.
This deep dive into Lubbock has been eye-opening. From its past to its present, even its potential future, I'm truly impressed.
Me too. Lubbock is a place that really defies easy categorization. It's this blend of West Texas resilience and that intellectual curiosity we talked about, and a pioneering spirit that keeps driving it forward.
So, as we wrap up our exploration of Lubbock, what's the final takeaway for our listeners?
Lubbock's story is still being written. It's a place where the past shapes the present, where innovation and tradition collide. In those wide open spaces of West Texas, they're a reflection of the endless possibilities that lie ahead. Now it's your turn to continue the journey. What parts of Lubbock's story will you dive into next? What questions will you ask? The answers are out there waiting to be discovered.